The first time Matteo Russo saw Lena Carter, she was standing beneath a tower of champagne glasses with a torn passport hidden against her heart, and his bride's fingers wrapped around her wrist, hard enough to leave bruises. The cruise ship was glowing like a floating palace under the Seattle night. Gold lights spilled across the top deck. Violin music trembled beneath the sound of waves. Millionaires laughed with crystal glasses in their hands, while the city skyline shrank behind them. All glass and rain and cold blue distance. The ship was leaving for Alaska. Everyone on board thought they were sailing toward glaciers, champagne breakfasts, and expensive photographs in front of snow-covered mountains. But Lena had already found the truth in the trash. A passport torn in half. A photograph that did not match. A name that had been changed. And a folded boarding document tucked between the damaged pages with 3 words printed in small black letters. Passenger transfer. Deceased. Her hands shook as she tried to hide the evidence beneath the front of her Navy cleaning uniform. She had found it inside a champagne trash bin behind the private engagement party of Matteo Russo. The kind of man guests only spoke about in whispers. The kind of man whose bodyguards wore earpieces and did not blink. The kind of man rich men feared more than storms. And now his bride was smiling at Lena like an angel while trying to crush the bones in her wrist. "Give it to me," Vivian Bellamy whispered. Her diamond earrings glittered against her pale neck. Her white engagement gown shimmered under the deck lights. Her smile never moved. Not even when her nails dug deeper into Lena's skin. "Or you'll never leave this ship." Lena's breath caught. Around them, the engagement party continued in beautiful ignorance. A senator laughed near the railing. A billionaire's wife complained about the caviar. Waiters moved like ghosts through the gold-lit crowd. No one looked at the cleaner. No one ever did. Lena looked past Vivian's shoulder. Across the deck. Matteo Russo turned. He was standing beneath a black canopy, tall and motionless, in a tailored charcoal suit. One hand wrapped around a glass he had not touched. Dark hair. Sharp, Yav. A face carved from control and violence. The collar of his shirt was open just enough to reveal the edge of black ink climbing his chest. His eyes found Lena. Then they dropped to Vivian's hand on her wrist. The music seemed to disappear. Vivian's smile flickered for half a second. Lena held the passport tighter. Matteo began walking toward them. Not fast. Not loudly. Not with panic. That was what made it terrifying. Every man in his path stepped aside before he reached them. His bodyguards moved behind him like shadows. Vivian released Lena's wrist just before he arrived. "Darling," she said sweetly, turning toward him. "Your staff seems confused. I found her stealing from the party." Lena felt the accusation hit her like cold water. She opened her mouth, but Matteo's gaze stopped her. He did not look angry. He looked interested, and somehow that was worse. "What did she steal?" he asked. Vivian lifted her chin. "Something personal." Matteo looked at Lena's chest, where the torn passport was hidden beneath trembling fingers. "Then," he said quietly, "she can show me." Vivian's eyes sharpened. Lena knew she should hand it over. She knew men like Matteo Russo did not ask twice. She knew she was a cleaner on a cruise ship full of rich people who could make her disappear with one phone call. But she also knew what she had seen. A fake passport. A death transfer. A plan. And a bride who was not afraid for him, only afraid of being exposed. So Lena took one step back. Matteo's bodyguards stiffened. Vivian's smile died. The ocean wind pushed loose strands of Lena's hair across her face. She looked at the most dangerous man on the ship and whispered, "Not in front of her." The silence that followed was so complete. Even the champagne glasses seemed to stop ringing. Matteo stared at her for a long moment. Then one corner of his mouth moved, not a smile, not amusement, but something darker. Fascination. Vivienne laughed softly. She's dramatic. Fire her. Matteo did not look away from Lena. No, he said. The word fell like a door locking. Vivienne's expression froze. Matteo held out his hand to Lena. Come with me. Lena looked at his hand. Large. Still, ringed with power. A man like him did not rescue women like her. Men like him owned rooms, owned silence, owned consequences. And yet behind Vivienne's beauty, Lena saw panic. That was enough. She placed the torn passport in Matteo Russo's hand. His fingers brushed hers for only a second, but his eyes changed. Not softly, dangerously. He opened the passport. The moment he saw the altered photograph, every trace of humanity left his face. Then he found the boarding document. Passenger transfer. Deceased. The paper bent slightly in his grip. Vivienne whispered, Matteo. He lifted his eyes to his bride. The ocean wind snapped the black tablecloths around them. Somewhere above, a gull cried over the dark water. Who gave this to you, Matteo? Asked Lena. I found it in the trash, Lena said. Behind the champagne station. Vivienne smiled too quickly. Convenient. Matteo took Lena's wrist before anyone else could move. Not hard. Not like Vivienne had. He turned her hand gently under the deck light. Purple marks were already forming where the bride's fingers had been. The entire expression of his face changed. A terrifying calm settled over him. Who touched you? He asked. Lena swallowed. It doesn't matter. His thumb hovered near the bruise but did not touch it. It matters to me. Vivienne's face lost color. Lena felt the ship move beneath her feet. Seattle was fading. The ocean was opening. And somehow, in the middle of a glittering engagement party, she realized she had stepped into a war that had been waiting for her before she ever found the passport. Matteo released her wrist slowly. Then he turned to the crowd. The party is over. Nobody laughed. Nobody argued. Within seconds, the richest people on the deck began moving toward the exits, like children dismissed by a king. The violinist stopped playing. Waiters froze. Bodyguards closed ranks. Vivienne stepped closer to Matteo. You re-embarrassing me. Matteo looked down at her. No, he said. I'm studying you. Her perfect face tightened. Lena should have left then. She should have gone below deck, changed out of her uniform, and pretended she had never seen any of it. But Matteo looked back at her. Your name. Lena Carter. His gaze moved over her face, not like the guests did, with dismissal or judgment, but like he was memorizing where fear ended and courage began. Lena Carter, he repeated. From this moment on, you stay where I can see you. Her stomach dropped. I have work. Not anymore. You can just decide that? His eyes darkened with something almost like approval. I just did. Lena lifted her chin, despite the fear crawling up her spine. I'm not one of your people. No, Matteo said. That's why you're still alive. Before she could answer, the lights on the deck flickered once. Then all the gold chandeliers went out. The ship plunged into darkness. A woman screamed. The first gunshot cracked across the night. Matteo moved before Lena understood what was happening. His arm wrapped around her waist, hard and unyielding, pulling her against his body as glass exploded behind her. Champagne towers shattered. Guests dropped to the floor. Bodyguards shouted into the dark. Lena felt Matteo's body cover hers as bullets hit the bar where she had been standing seconds before. His mouth was near her ear. Breathe, he said. She couldn't. The smell of gunpowder mixed with salt and spilled champagne. Emergency lights flashed red. Bodies moved in the chaos. Somewhere, Vivian screamed Matteo's name, but he did not go to her. He pulled Lena behind a marble service counter and pressed her down beside him. "Look at me," he ordered. Lena's eyes found his cold, controlled, dangerous, but not afraid. "Are you hit?" She shook her head. His gaze moved over her anyway, checking her face, her arms, her uniform, the curve of her shoulder where glass had torn the fabric. His jaw tightened. "You were the target," he said. Lena stared at him. "Me?" He looked toward the dark deck where his men were returning fire. "No," he corrected softly. The truth was, the second time the lights flickered. Lena saw Vivian standing near the emergency staircase. She was not hiding. She was watching, and beside her, half hidden in the red glow, stood a man Lena had seen earlier near the champagne bins. A man in a white service jacket, a man who had not been part of the crew. Vivian whispered something to him. Then he vanished below deck. Lena grabbed Matteo's sleeve. "I saw someone," she said. "With her." Matteo's eyes cut to Vivian. For 1 second, something ancient and violent passed through him. Then he took Lena's hand. "Run." They moved through the ship like the night had split open around them. Matteo's bodyguards formed a wall as they crossed the deck. But Lena could still hear the screams behind her. The pounding of shoes. The crack of gunfire fading into alarms. Rain began to fall, thin and cold, slanting across the polished floors. Matteo did not let go of her. Not when they entered the private elevator. Not when one of his men pressed a keycard to a hidden panel. Not when the doors closed and trapped them in a mirrored box, with her breath shaking and his blood on his collar. "Your neck," Lena whispered. He glanced at the thin red line near his jaw like it belonged to someone else. "It's nothing. It's bleeding. People often do. After bullets." She stared at him. That's supposed to be comforting. For the first time, Matteo looked almost human. Almost. A faint shadow crossed his mouth. But it disappeared before it could become a smile. "You re-angry." "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps people alive." "No. Fear keeps people controlled." His eyes stayed on her. The elevator hummed upward. The space between them felt too small. He was too close. Too powerful. Too calm in a world that had just tried to kill her. Lena could smell rain on his suit. Expensive cologne beneath gunpowder. And something darker that seemed to belong only to him. "You're not controlled," he said. "You don't know me. I know you found a death document belonging to a dangerous man and refused to hand it to the woman threatening you. That was stupidity." "No," Matteo said. "That was character." The elevator opened into a private suite at the top of the ship. Lena forgot to breathe. It was not a cabin. It was a palace floating above black water. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the storm. A grand piano sat beneath a crystal chandelier. White roses filled silver vases. A private dining table had been set for two, candles still burning beside untouched plates. An engagement suite. His suite with Vivienne. The thought made Lena step back. "I shouldn't be here." Matteo noticed the movement. "No one should be here," he said. "That's why it's secure." His men entered behind them. One locked the door. Another began sweeping the room for devices. Matteo handed the passport to a man with silver hair and a scar across one eyebrow. "Raphael, verify every mark, every stamp, every fingerprint." Raphael glanced at Lena. "And her." Matteo's voice cooled. "Careful." The older man lowered his gaze. "Understood." Lena crossed her arms over her torn uniform. "I'm not a package." "No," Matteo said. You re a witness, and witnesses around you get shot at, usually faster. She hated that a part of her believed him. Raphael unfolded the boarding document on the table. His face changed as he read. This is coded through the Bellamy shipping line. Vivienne's family. Matteo went still. Raphael continued. Transfer scheduled for tomorrow night near Ketchikan. Medical evacuation protocol. It lists you as deceased upon removal. Lena felt cold spread through her chest. They were going to take him off the ship. Raphael nodded. Not alive. Miss Carter. Matteo looked out the window at the storm. No shock. No fear. Just calculation. That frightened Lena more than rage would have. Vivienne wanted me declared dead before we reached Alaska, he said quietly. Then my assets transfer under marriage contract. Lena stared at him. You were going to marry someone who wanted to kill you. I was going to marry someone whose family controlled a port I needed. That's not marriage. That's a hostage negotiation with flowers. Raphael coughed once into his fist. Matteo turned his head. Lena realized too late what she had said, but Matteo's eyes did not harden. They burned. You say dangerous things when you're scared. I say true things when rich people act insane. This time, Raphael looked fully away to hide whatever was on his face. Matteo approached Lena slowly. She made herself stand still. He reached for her wrist again, the bruised one, and stopped before touching her. A restraint so deliberate it made her heart ache in a way she did not understand. Did she hurt you anywhere else? His voice had changed. Lower, quieter, worse. No. Don't lie to protect someone cruel. I'm not protecting her. Then why are you shaking? Lena looked at her hand. She was shaking. She hated it. Hated that fear had a body. Hated that she could be brave and terrified at the same time. Because this morning my biggest problem was a guest yelling at me for using the wrong towel fold. She said. Now I'm in the private suite of a mafia boss. Holding proof, his fiancée tried to kill him. And someone shot at me because I cleaned a trash bin. Matteo studied her face. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not softness. Recognition. As if he understood what it meant to be dragged into violence by someone else's hunger. Before he could speak, Raphael lifted a small black object from beneath the dining table. A listening device. Then another from behind the flowers. And another from inside the piano bench. Matteo's gaze turned lethal. Lena whispered. She was listening to you. No, Matteo said. She was listening for something. Raphael broke open the device casing. These aren't ours. Who's Matteo asked. Raphael looked grim. The Varkov family. The name changed the air in the room. Even Lena felt it. Matteo's bodyguards looked toward him like men waiting for an explosion. But Matteo only closed his hand around the edge of the table until his knuckles whitened. Lena remembered something then. The man in the white service jacket. He had a tattoo, she said. On his wrist. A black crown with 3 lines under it. Raphael's head snapped toward her. Matteo's eyes locked on her. You saw that clearly. I notice hands, Lena said. People leave messes with them. Raphael said. Varkov en force mark. Matteo turned toward the window again. Rain struck the glass harder. Lena felt the truth forming before anyone said it. His bride was not only stealing his empire, she was selling him to his enemies. And Lena, invisible Lena Carter, with cleaning gloves in her pocket and bruises on her wrist, had become the only person who saw the first crack in the lie. Matteo reached into his jacket and removed a phone. Lock down the ship. Raphael stiffened. That will cause panic. Good. Matteo, no one gets off. No one enters restricted decks. Find the man in the white jacket. Bring Vivian to me. Lena stepped forward. Wait. Every man in the room looked at her. She swallowed. If she knows I saw him, she'll change whatever she planned. If you grab her now, she'll pretend to be innocent. Rich people like her always have a second face ready. Matteo's gaze sharpened. What do you suggest? Lena almost laughed. You were asking me? You found what my security missed. The words should not have warmed her. They did. She looked down at the passport, at the torn edges, the changed photo, the hidden death certificate disguised as paperwork. She wanted me to give it back quietly. Lena said, so make her think I still have something. Make her come after me again. No. The word came too fast. Too hard. Lena blinked. Matteo's face was suddenly unreadable. Raphael watched him with interest. Lena crossed her arms. You asked what I suggest. I reject it. Because it's dangerous. Because it uses you as bait. You use people all the time. Matteo stepped closer. The air tightened. Not you. The words landed with a force neither of them was ready for. Lena's pulse changed. Matteo looked away first. That frightened her too, because men like him did not look away unless something inside them had moved. Raphael cleared his throat. There may be another issue. Matteo did not turn. Speak. Raphael placed a second document on the table. The altered passport uses a backup identity. Matteo went silent. Raphael's voice lowered. The one connected to the child. Lena saw it then. A fracture. Tiny. Almost invisible. But Matteo Russo, feared by every man on that ship, went completely still. Not with anger. With fear. Lena looked between them. What child? Raphael's eyes shifted to Matteo. Matteo said nothing. The storm pressed against the windows. Finally, he turned to Lena. His face had become a locked door. You don't need to know. Someone tried to kill me tonight because of what I found. That does not entitle you to everything. No, she said softly. But it means your secrets are spilling onto people who never asked to bleed for them. His eyes flashed. For a second, she thought he might shout. He didn't. That was worse. He walked to the window, one hand in his pocket, looking out at the black Pacific like it had betrayed him too. I had a daughter, he said. The room went dead quiet. Lena forgot the bruise on her wrist. She was taken from me 3 years ago by the Varkovs. Everyone believes she died in a warehouse fire. Lena's throat tightened, but she didn't. Matteo's reflection in the window looked like a ghost of a man pretending not to be broken. No. Raphael spoke carefully. We recently learned she may be hidden in Alaska under another name. This cruise was cover. The engagement was cover. The marriage contract gave Matteo access to Bellamy ports without alerting the Varkovs. Lena looked down at the passport. A fake name. A changed face. A death transfer. They found out. She whispered. Matteo nodded once. And Vivian is helping them. No one corrected her. The luxury suite suddenly felt colder than the ocean outside. Lena imagined a little girl somewhere in Alaska, hidden under a name that was not hers, waiting without knowing whether her father was alive. She looked at Matteo again. He was still terrifying, still dangerous, still the kind of man people probably prayed never noticed them. But beneath all that control, there was something else. A father trying not to hope because hope could be used against him. That was the moment Lena stopped seeing him only as a mafia boss. And that was the moment Matteo Russo began to become dangerous to her heart. Not because he was powerful, because he was wounded and refused to ask anyone to see it. A knock hit the suite door. 3 sharp taps. Raphael drew his gun. Matteo moved in front of Lena without looking back. One of his guards checked the camera screen near the door. "It's Miss Bellamy." Matteo's jaw tightened. Vivian's voice came through the intercom. Smooth and sweet. "Matteo, darling, you can lock your bride out all night." Lena felt Matteo's body shift in front of her. He turned his head slightly. "Go into the bedroom," he told Lena. "No." His eyes cut to hers. "This is not a request. I am the person she threatened. If I hide, she wins. She wins if you die. She wins if everyone keeps treating me like something to move around." For a heartbeat. They stared at each other with the storm behind them and the enemy at the door. Then Matteo leaned closer. His voice dropped so low only she could hear it. "Bravery is not the same as survival." Lena whispered back. "Neither is control." Something raw passed through his eyes. Then he stepped aside. Not far, just enough. Raphael looked like he wanted to object. Matteo lifted one hand. Silence. The door opened. Vivian entered wearing a silk wrap over her engagement dress. Her blonde hair loose around her shoulders. Her face perfect again. She looked around the suite, noticing the guards, the tension, the passport on the table. Then she saw Lena. Her smile sharpened. "Still here?" she asked. "I thought staff had quarters below deck." Lena felt the old familiar sting, the same tone rich guests use when they wanted her to remember her place. Too big, too plain, too tired, too ordinary to stand under chandeliers. But before Lena could answer, Matteo spoke. "She stays." Vivian laughed lightly. Because she found trash. Because she found betrayal. The word landed between them. Vivian's face did not change enough for most people to notice. Lena noticed. Matteo did too. "Do you have something to confess?" he asked. Vivian walked toward him. Soft and elegant, placing one hand on his chest like she belonged there. "Only that I hate seeing you paranoid. It makes you cruel." Matteo looked at her hand, then at her face. "I was cruel before you met me." "Yes," she whispered, "but never stupid." Lena watched the bride lean close enough to kiss him. Something twisted in her chest. Unexpected and unwelcome. Jealousy. Ridiculous. Impossible. Dangerous. She looked away. Matteo noticed. His eyes moved from Lena's face back to Vivian. And for the first time, his expression carried something almost like disgust. Vivian's smile faded. "You're humiliating me for a cleaner." Matteo's voice was calm. "No, you did that yourself." Vivian stepped back. Her mask cracked. "You think she matters?" she asked. "Look at her. She cleans rooms for women like me." Lena's face burned. Matteo moved so fast the air changed. He did not touch Vivian. He did not raise his voice. He simply stepped between her and Lena, close enough to make Vivian go still. "Say another word about her," he said quietly. "And this engagement ends with your family identifying you by jewelry." The room froze. Vivian stared at him, shocked not by the threat, but by who it defended. Lena felt her breath tremble. No one had ever stood in front of her like that. Not for her job. Not for her dignity. Not for the softness people mistook for weakness. Matteo did not look back at her, but his hand flexed at his side, as if he was resisting the urge to reach for her. Vivian's eyes filled with something poisonous. "You remaking a mistake?" she whispered. "You need my family." "No," Matteo said. "I needed your port." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Different thing." Viviana's face went pale. Before anyone could move, The ship lurched violently. The chandelier swung. A glass vase crashed to the floor. The lights flickered again. Then the emergency alarm blared. A voice crackled over the intercom. Security breach on Deck 5. Fire reported near crew access corridor. Lena's heart slammed. Deck 5. Crew quarters. Her quarters. She rushed toward the door. Matteo caught her arm gently. Where are you going? My room. My friend is there. Nora, she works laundry. She doesn't know any of this. Raphael. Already moving. Raphael spoke into his radio. Lena pulled against Matteo's hold. Let me go. No. You don't understand. I understand traps. My friend could die. Matteo's eyes burned into hers. And so, could you? Lena hated the tears that rose in her eyes. She hated more that Matteo saw them. Please, she whispered. She has a little boy waiting for her in Tacoma. That changed him. Not visibly to anyone else. Maybe, but Lena saw it. The word little boy struck too close to daughter. Matteo released her arm, then turned to his men. We go together. Vivian laughed behind them. Sharp and cold. Of course. The king runs after the maid now. Matteo stopped at the door. Without turning, he said, Raphael. Yes. If my bride leaves this suite, shoot the lock off the door and chain it from the outside. Vivienne gasped. You wouldn't at. Matteo looked back at her. His eyes were winter. I am trying very hard to be civilized tonight. Then he took Lena's hand and led her into the smoke-filled heart of the ship. The corridors below deck were nothing like the glowing party above. Here, the ship smelled of metal, bleach, wet uniforms, and panic. Emergency lights flashed red along narrow hallways. Crew members ran past carrying extinguishers. Smoke rolled from a service stairwell. Lena knew these halls better than any guest suite. She knew which doors stuck, which cameras were broken, where tired workers hid snacks, where the ocean groaned loudest against the hull. Matteo stayed close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. Too close for a stranger. Not close enough for safety. Your friend's full name? He said. Nora Pike, red hair, laundry crew. Raphael's voice came through Matteo's earpiece. We found the fire source. Deliberate. No bodies yet. Yet. Lena moved faster. At the crew corridor, smoke thickened. Matteo stepped in front of her. She shoved his arm. I know this section. And I know ambushes. I'm not standing behind you while my friend is in there. He looked down at her. Furious. And something else. Afraid. For her. Lena. The way he said her name stopped her more than any command could have. Not because it was soft, because it sounded like a warning to himself. A crew door burst open ahead. Nora stumbled out coughing. Sewed on her cheek, clutching a small canvas bag. Lena ran to her. Nora. Nora collapsed into her arms. Lena. Someone searched your bunk. Matteo's gaze snapped to the corridor. Lena held Nora tighter. What? They tore everything apart. Your mattress. Your locker. They kept asking where you hid the little blue folder. Lena went cold. What blue folder? Nora shook her head. I don't know. But one of them said if they didn't find it, they'd use the brother. Lena stopped breathing. Matteo turned slowly toward her. His voice was low. Brother. Lena closed her eyes. There it was. The part of her life she had spent years keeping away from men like him. My younger brother, she said. Eli. He's 17. He has autism. He lives in a care home outside Tacoma. Matteo's face changed. Does anyone on this ship know that? No. Just Nora. Nora looked terrified. I didn't tell anyone. I swear. Lena believed her instantly. Matteo did too. Apparently, because he did not question Nora. He questioned the situation. They accessed crew files. He said. Lena felt the floor tilt beneath her. They know about Eli. Matteo lifted his phone. Raphael. Put men at every care facility within 20 miles of Tacoma connected to Lena Carter. Quietly. Lena stared at him. You can do that. His eyes met hers. For you? Yes. The words were too much. Too intimate. Too dangerous. She looked away. But not before he saw what they did to her. A sharp clang echoed from the far corridor. One of Matteo's guards lifted his weapon. A man in a white service jacket stepped out of the smoke. The same man from the deck. The black crown tattoo marked his wrist. In his hand was a knife. But he was not looking at Matteo. He was looking at Lena. You should have stayed invisible, he said. Matteo's body moved like a storm breaking. He shoved Lena behind him as the man lunged. The hallway erupted into violence fast. Brutal. Controlled. Matteo caught the attacker's wrist, slammed him against the wall, and knocked the knife free with a sound that made Lena flinch. The man laughed through blood on his lip. She has it, he said. She doesn't even know. Matteo pinned him harder. What does she have? The man's eyes slid to Lena. The child's name. Then he bit down on something. Raphael shouted, Move. Matteo dragged Lena back just as the attacker convulsed and collapsed. Poison. Lena covered her mouth. Matteo stared down at the dead man, breathing hard, then looked at Lena. The child's name. She shook her head. I don't know what he means. But then she remembered. The trash bin. The torn passport. There had been something else stuck to the bottom of the champagne liner. Not a folder. Not a document. A luggage tog. Small. Blue. She had peeled it off and shoved it into her pocket without reading it because Vivian had appeared. Lena reached slowly into her uniform pocket. Matteo watched her hand. She pulled out the damp blue tag. The printed name was smudged, but still readable. Mila Rose. Cabin 712. Glacier Star Youth Program. Matteo stopped breathing. For the first time since she had met him, the Mafia Boss looked destroyed. Not weak. Destroyed. Mila, he whispered. Lena held the tag like it might break. Your daughter. He took it from her with a hand that was no longer steady. Raphael crossed himself. The ship groaned around them. Matteo looked down the smoke-filled corridor. Then back at Lena. She on this ship. The words changed everything. The hidden child was not waiting in Alaska. She was already trapped somewhere on board. And someone had placed her name in Lena's path for a reason. The next hours became a nightmare wrapped in luxury. Matteo moved Lena and Nora into a secure staff lounge, while his men searched the ship deck by deck. Vivian remained locked in the suite, screaming threats through attorneys and family names. The captain tried to object to Matteo's lockdown until Raphael quietly showed him a photograph on a phone, and the captain stopped objecting. Outside, the Pacific storm worsened. Inside, secrets surfaced like bodies from dark water. The youth program had no record of Mila Rose. Cabin 712 had been booked under a retired school teacher's name. When Matteo's men arrived, the cabin was empty except for a child's red ribbon tied to the balcony handle. Lena watched Matteo hold that ribbon in silence. No rage, no performance, just silence so deep it frightened every man around him. She wanted to say something. There was nothing. Then he turned to her. Eat. She blinked. What? They were standing in an empty first-class dining room. Rain streaked the panoramic windows. The tables had been abandoned mid-service, silverware still gleaming beside untouched plates. "You haven't eaten since before the party," Matteo said. "My appetite didn't survive the murder attempt. It needs to. My friend was nearly burned alive. Your daughter is missing. Your bride is apparently a villain in couture. And you re-worried about dinner?" His eyes moved over her face. "Yes." That one word did something to her chest. Lena looked away. "I'm not your responsibility. You became my responsibility when you protected my life. I protected evidence. You protected me." She hated how quietly he said it, as if the distinction mattered to him. A bodyguard placed a tray of soup and bread on the table. Lena stared at it, then at Matteo. "Aren't you eating?" "No." "Then neither am I." His brow shifted. "That is not negotiation." "It is now." Raphael, standing near the door, looked deeply entertained for a man surrounded by crisis. Matteo slowly sat across from Lena. A waiter appeared with another bowl. For several minutes, they ate in tense silence while rain hammered the windows and armed men guarded every exit. It should have been absurd. It felt intimate. Lena noticed Matteo did not eat much. He moved the spoon once, twice, then stopped. "Tell me about her," Lena said. His gaze lifted. "Mila." A wall came down over his face. "No." Lena nodded. "Okay." That seemed to surprise him. "You don't push. I know what it feels like when people try to take private pain and turn it into information." He watched her. "You speak like someone who learned that young." Lena looked at the rain. "My mother died when I was 20. My brother was 11. Our stepfather wanted the insurance money and didn't want Eli. I learned very quickly that polite people can be monsters when paperwork is involved." Matteo's fingers tightened around his spoon. "What happened to your stepfather?" "I got a lawyer, worked 3 jobs, took custody, lost it temporarily when I couldn't afford the care he needed." Her voice thinned. "I still visit every Sunday." "You blame yourself." His sister." "That is not an answer. It's the only one I have." Matteo leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made her feel seen in places she usually kept hidden. "I could move him somewhere safer," he said. Lena's eyes snapped to his. "No. It would be better. It would be control, dressed as help." His jaw flexed. "Lena, you don't get to rearrange my life because you feel guilty that your war touched it." The room fell silent. A few bodyguards looked at the floor. Matteo's eyes darkened. "I am not a gentleman." I noticed. "When I protect someone, I remove threats. People aren't furniture." "Matteo, you don't get to move us into safer rooms and call that love." The word love struck the air too sharply. Neither of them moved. Lena's face warmed. "I didn't mean. I know what you meant." But his voice was lower now, rougher. A charged silence stretched between them. Then Raphael entered. "We found footage." Matteo stood. The moment was gone. But not gone. Never fully gone. In the ship's security room. Grainy footage played across 6 screens. Lena stood beside Matteo, arms folded, watching herself on one monitor moving behind the champagne station. Another angle showed Vivian speaking to the man in the white jacket near the deck stairs. Then came the footage from Deck 7. A small girl in a red sweater walked beside a woman dressed as a youth counselor. Dark curls, tiny shoulders, a ribbon in her hair. Matteo's breath stopped. The girl turned her face toward the camera for half a second. Mila. His daughter was alive. Lena looked at Matteo and wished she hadn't tea. The pain in his face was too private, too beautiful in the worst way. He reached toward the screen like he could touch the child through the recording, then stopped himself before his fingers met glass. When he asked, Raphael checked the timestamp. 40 minutes before Lena found the passport, the woman counselor led Mila into a service elevator. The elevator descended, not to guest decks, to cargo. Matteo's expression hardened into something lethal. They were moving her tomorrow night, Raphael said. Same transfer window as your staged death. Lena understood. They were going to take them both. Raphael nodded. Kill Matteo. Move the child. Vivian inherits enough access to fracture the Russo empire. Varkovs get the bloodline. Lena felt sick. She's just a little girl. Matteo turned toward the door. Lena grabbed his sleeve. He stopped. Every guard froze. You can storm cargo blindly, she said. They'll use her against you. He looked at her hand on his sleeve, then at her face. She is my daughter. I know. No, he said, voice shaking beneath the control. You don't. Lena stepped closer, refusing to let go. I know what it feels like to love someone vulnerable and be terrified that every system, every powerful person, every locked door is stronger than you. His eyes searched hers. I know, she whispered. So think. Don't just hurt people. Save her. The words landed. For a moment, he looked like a man standing at the edge of himself. Then his hand covered hers on his sleeve. Warm, steady, careful. He did not pull it away. Stay beside Raphael, he said. That sounds like you were about to do something stupid. It will be strategic. That's what dangerous men call stupid when they have money. Raphael muttered. She's not wrong. Matteo gave him a look, but the tension shifted. Just enough. They formed a plan with the precision of people who knew the ship itself was against them. Lena knew the crew routes. She knew the linen elevators, the hidden doors, the laundry chutes large enough for supply bags. Matteo knew war. Raphael knew betrayal. Together, they traced a path into the cargo level that avoided the main security cameras. But the plan required bait, not Lena. Matteo refused before anyone suggested it. The bait would be the passport, a copy of it, planted where Vivian could find it, with a false note claiming Lena had hidden the original in the crew chapel. Crew chapel, Matteo asked. Lena nodded. Small room near medical. Quiet. No cameras inside. People go there when they need to cry where guests cannot see. His gaze lingered on her. You go there. Sometimes. When? When people remind me I'm invisible. Something changed in his face. A quiet anger. Not explosive, but deep. You are not invisible. The words should have been easy to dismiss. They weren't too. By midnight, the ship had become a locked kingdom of whispers. Guests were told a mechanical issue had caused restricted access. Wealthy passengers complained into phones that had mysteriously lost signal. The storm outside cut the ship off from everything except darkness and intention. Lena changed into a dry uniform in a secured room, while Nora slept on a sofa under guard. When Lena emerged, Matteo was waiting in the corridor. He had changed too. Black shirt, rolled sleeves, tattoos visible along his forearms, religious iconography. Dates. Names. A small rose inked near his wrist. Mila Rose. Lena saw it. So did he. For a moment. Neither spoke. Then he held out a coat. It's cold below deck. Ima fine. You say that when you were not. She hesitated, then took it. The coat swallowed her in warmth and expensive wool. Matteo watched her pull it around herself with an expression that felt too close to hunger and grief. What she asked? Nothing. That was not a nothing look. His mouth tightened. You are wearing my coat. Her pulse stumbled. So I'm trying not to enjoy it. The corridor seemed to narrow. Lena's breath caught. There it was. Not a confession. Not tenderness. Something more dangerous because it was restrained. He stepped closer, then stopped himself. Almost touching. Always almost. Matteo. An alarm chirped from Raphael's radio. Movement near the crew chapel. Raphael said. Vivian took the bait. Matteo's face closed. The moment shattered. They moved. The crew chapel was small, hidden behind an unmarked white door near the medical bay. Inside, there were 12 wooden chairs, a narrow altar, and a round window looking out onto black water. A battery candle flickered beneath a metal cross. Lena stood in the shadowed hallway with Raphael while Matteo watched from the opposite end. Vivian entered alone, or appeared to. She wore black now. Not white. Her hair pulled back. Diamond earrings gone. Without the bridal costume, she looked less like a princess and more like what she truly was, a woman made of calculation. She found the envelope beneath the altar, opened it, smiled, then spoke into the darkness. She's lying. The counselor from the video stepped out behind her. So did two men with Varkov tattoos. Lena's stomach dropped. Vivienne held up the fake passport copy. The cleaner has the real one, and Matteo won't let her out of his sight, which means we use the only weakness men like him never admit. The counselor smiled. The child. Vivienne's expression sharpened. No, she said. The cleaner. Lena's blood went cold. Matteo, hidden across the corridor, went perfectly still. Vivienne continued. He watched me plan this marriage for 8 months and never looked at me the way he looked at her after 8 minutes. Men like Matteo don't fall in love. They fixate. So we cut out the fixation. Lena stopped breathing. Love? No. No. That was manipulation. Strategy. Cruelty. But Matteo's face in the shadows had changed. Not denial. Recognition. That frightened her more. One of the Varkov men turned. Someone is here. Chaos exploded. Raphael shoved Lena behind the medical doorway as Matteo emerged from the dark like vengeance given a body. The hallway erupted in gunfire. This time, Lena did not freeze. She crawled through the medical room, heart pounding, and grabbed the emergency fire extinguisher from the wall. When the counselor tried to flee through the side exit, Lena swung it with both hands. The woman dropped hard. Raphael shouted her name. Matteo turned at the sound just as one of the Varkov men raised his gun toward Lena. Matteo fired first. The man fell. Lena stood shaking, clutching the extinguisher. Matteo crossed the hallway in 3 strides and caught her face between his hands. Are you hurt? His control was gone. The mask had cracked. His thumbs hovered near her cheeks. Careful despite the violence burning in him, Lena shook her head. No. His forehead almost touched hers. Almost. For one impossible second. The ship. The gunfire. The betrayal. The missing child all faded into the space between their breathing. Then Vivian laughed. She was on the floor near the chapel entrance. Raphael's gun trained on her. Yuri already dead. Matteo, she said. You just don't know which version of you they were going to bury. Matteo released Lena slowly. Vivian looked at Lena with pure hatred. And you, she whispered. You should have stayed with the trash. Lena stepped forward before Matteo could stop her. For once, she did not feel invisible. She felt furious. "I found you there," Lena said. Vivian's face twisted. Matteo's eyes moved to Lena. Something proud and possessive passed through him. Raphael dragged Vivian to her feet. "Where is my daughter?" Matteo asked. Vivian smiled. Then the ship's intercom crackled. A child's voice trembled through the speakers. "Papa." Matteo went white. The entire hallway stopped. The voice came again, small and terrified. "Papa, they said you forgot me?" Matteo's face broke. Only for a second, but Lena saw it. Then another voice came over the intercom. "Male." Russian accent. "Calm. Come to the bow alone." "Russo. Bring the cleaner, or the little rose goes into the sea." The line cut. Matteo's eyes closed. When he opened them, he was no longer just dangerous. He was catastrophic. "No," Lena said immediately. He looked at her. "You are not going alone," she said. "They asked for you too, because they know you'll lose control if I'm threatened." His silence confirmed it. Lena's heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Then, use that." She said. Matteo stared at her. "What?" "They think I'm weakness. Let them keep thinking that." "No." "Matteo. No." His voice cracked like thunder. Lena stepped closer. "That is your daughter. And you are not payment." The words hit her hard. Not because they were romantic. Because they were absolute. No one had ever refused to trade her before. Not for convenience. Not for peace. Not for survival. She softened despite herself. "I'm not asking to be payment. I'm asking to be part of saving her." His jaw worked. "You don't know what men like them do. I know what happens when good people do nothing because they re-afraid. You think I'm good." "No," Lena said. "I think you love her." That silenced him. She reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers, like he had been resisting it all night and finally lost. "I can be afraid and still walk with you," she whispered. Matteo looked at their joined hands, then at her face. His voice dropped. "If anything happens to you, I will become the worst version of myself. Then don't let anything happen." A faint, devastated smile touched his mouth and vanished. "Boss," Raphael said softly, "we have 7 minutes." Matteo lifted Lena's hand and pressed his lips to her bruised wrist. Not a kiss of romance. A vow of violence. Vivian watched from Raphael's grip, and for the first time all night, she looked truly afraid. The bow of the ship cut through the storm like a black blade. Rain lashed the deck. Wind roared so loudly Lena could barely hear her own breath. The luxury lights flickered behind curtains of water. Far below, waves smashed against the hull. Dark and endless. Matteo walked beside Lena with no visible weapon. That alone made him more terrifying. On the forward deck, beneath the ship's great white mast, stood 3 men in dark coats. One held a little girl in a red sweater. Mila. She was small, maybe 6 years old. With Matteo's dark eyes and tear-streaked cheeks, a red ribbon clung wetly to her hair. Her wrists were tied in front of her. Lena felt something inside her tear open. Matteo did not move, but his hand flexed once at his side. "Papa," Mila cried. The man holding her tightened his grip. "Stay," he warned. Matteo's voice was almost gentle. "I am here, Mila." The gentleness hurt more than rage would have. The man smiled. "And you brought the cleaner. Good." Lena lifted her chin. The rain soaked Matteo's coat around her shoulders. Her hair stuck to her face. She knew she did not look glamorous. Not like Viviana. Not like the women in the party gowns. She looked like exactly what she was, a tired woman in a borrowed coat who cleaned up after people who never learned her name. But Mila was staring at her, and Lena smiled at the child. Small, steady. Mila stopped crying for half a second. The man noticed. How touching, he said. Matteo Russo, saved by housekeeping. Matteo's eyes did not leave his daughter. What do you want? Abram. So this was Abram Varkov, the rival shadow behind the whole night. Abram smiled. Public death is messy, but a cruise accident, tragic. The grieving bride inherits access. Your captains fight. Your ports open. Your daughter disappears again. Clean. You won't leave this ship. Abram laughed. Neither will you. His eyes moved to Lena. Give me the original documents. Lena's fingers tightened around the inner pocket of Matteo's coat. The real passport was not there. That was the point. Matteo had trusted her plan. Trusted her. Lena took one step forward. Matteo's entire body tensed. I have them. She lied. Abram aimed his gun at her. Matteo moved slightly in front of her. Abram smiled wider. There it is. The weakness. Lena touched Matteo's back. One press of her fingers. Wait. He obeyed. The fact that he obeyed her in front of his enemy shifted something in the air. Abram noticed. So did Mila. So did every hidden Russo man waiting in the storm dark, above and below. Lena spoke loudly enough to carry through the rain. You made one mistake. Abram's eyes narrowed. She pulled the blue luggage tag from her pocket. Not the passport. 2. The tag. You thought invisible people don't keep copies. Abram's smile vanished. On the upper deck behind him, giant outdoor screens flickered to life. Raphael had done it. Every screen across the ship began displaying the evidence. The altered passport, the death transfer, Vivienne's meeting with Varkov men, the footage of Mila being taken, the Bellamy port codes, Abram's face. Guests watching from sealed lounges saw it. Crews saw it. The captain saw it. The world would soon see it too. A public scandal at Sia. Exactly what Vivienne had tried to avoid. Abram shoved Mila toward the railing. Matteo moved. That was did the storm. Gunfire cracked from above as Russo men emerged from hidden positions. Abram's men fired back. Lena dropped to the wet deck as Matteo lunged for Mila. One man grabbed Lena from behind. She fought, elbowing hard. But he dragged her toward the railing. The ocean roared below, black and hungry. Matteo, she screamed. Matteo turned. He had Mila in one arm. Abram stood between them. Gun raised. Time slowed. Matteo could shield his daughter or save Lena. Lena saw the terrible choice strike his face, and she knew, with sudden clarity, that this was what his enemies wanted. To split his heart in two. So Lena stopped struggling. She looked straight at Matteo through the rain and shouted, "Choose her." Matteo's face twisted with fury. No. Lena slammed her heel down on her attacker's foot and threw her weight sideways. They crashed into the deck railing together. Pain exploded through her shoulder. His grip loosened. A shot rang out. The man fell away from her. Raphael. Matteo ran. He passed Mila to one of his men and reached Lena just as she slipped on the rain-slicked deck. For one horrifying second, her body tipped over the railing. The ocean opened beneath her. Then Matteo caught her. His hand locked around her wrist, the bruised one. Pain tore through her arm. She cried out. Matteo grabbed her with his other hand and hauled her back against his chest. Falling with her onto the deck, he held her so tightly she could barely breathe. His body shook. Not from cold, from fear. Never, he said against her hair. Never tell me to choose losing you. Lena clung to him, rain and tears mixing on her face. Behind them, the last gunshots faded. Abram Varkov was forced to his knees by Russo men. Vivienne, dragged onto the deck by Raphael, stared at the screens, still showing her betrayal to every passenger on board. Mila broke free from the guard, holding her, and ran. Papa. Matteo released Lena only enough to catch his daughter. The little girl crashed into his arms, and Matteo Russo, the feared mafia boss who could make powerful men tremble with a glance, sank to his knees on the stormy deck and held his child like the world had finally given him permission to break. Lena watched him close his eyes against Mila's wet hair. His hand reached blindly. For Lena, she moved closer. Mila looked up at her through tears. "You re the cleaner," the child whispered. Lena smiled shakily. "I guess I am." Mila reached for her too. And there, beneath the storm, with enemies on their knees and the ocean raging around them, Lena Carter found herself wrapped into the arms of a dangerous man and the daughter he had crossed hell to find. By morning, the ship had changed shape. The storm passed just before dawn, leaving the Pacific silver and bruised beneath a pale sky. Helicopters circled overhead. Coast Guard vessels cut through the water. Guests stood behind glass windows in robes and jewels, whispering about the scandal that had unfolded across every screen on board. Vivienne Bellamy was taken off the ship in handcuffs at the first emergency port. She did not look at Matteo. She looked at Lena, not with beauty now, with hatred stripped bare. "You think he'll keep you," Vivienne hissed as officers escorted her past. Lena stood in the port corridor with a blanket around her shoulders, her wrist bandaged, Matteo's coat still over her lap. Vivienne leaned closer. "Men like him don't love women like you. They protect them until the danger passes. Then they remember what they are." Lena's throat tightened. The words found every old wound, every guest who had looked through her, every man who had made her feel temporary, every mirror she had avoided after someone laughed too loudly. Matteo appeared behind Vivienne. He had Mila asleep in his arms, her red ribbon tied now around his wrist. His eyes moved from Vivienne to Lena's face. He had heard. Vivienne smiled faintly. "Tell her I'm wrong." Matteo looked at Lena. For a long moment, he said nothing. And that silence hurt. Lena stood. "I don't need him to tell me." Her voice shook, but she held it. Vivienne's smile faded. Lena stepped closer, blankets slipping from her shoulders. "You wanted me invisible because invisible people scare women like you. We see what you drop. We hear what you whisper. We clean up the mess and remember who made it." Vivienne's eyes flashed. Lena continued. "You looked at me and saw trash. Matteo looked at me and saw truth. But what matters is that I finally saw myself." Matteo's gaze darkened with something fierce and reverent. Vivienne was dragged away. This time, no one watched her like a bride. They watched her like wreckage. Lena turned to leave. Matteo shifted Mila carefully into Raphael's arms. "Lena." She stopped, but did not turn. His footsteps approached. "I heard what she said. I know. She was wrong." Lena closed her eyes. "You don't have to say that because you feel guilty. I don't do things out of guilt." She laughed softly, tiredly. "Of course not. That would require emotional processing." A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Matteo said, "I am trying." Those 3 words nearly undid her. She turned. He stood in the dawn light, no longer perfectly untouchable. His shirt was torn at one shoulder. Rain had dried in his dark hair. There was exhaustion beneath his eyes. But his gaze on her was steady. Too steady, trying what she asked. To not take over your life. To not move your brother without asking. To not lock you somewhere safe because I cannot tolerate the thought of you hurt. His jaw tightened. To not become the worst part of myself in the name of protecting you. Lena's heart ached. Matteo, I don't know how to want gently. He said, I won't lie to you. Her breath caught. The port corridor bustled around them. But the world felt narrowed to his voice. I know how to own territory. I know how to punish betrayal. I know how to survive men who think love is leverage. His eyes moved over her face. But you are not territory. And if I ever forget that, I need you to walk away before I ruin the only honest thing that found me in years. Lena stared at him. This was not softness. This was harder. A dangerous man placing a weapon at her feet and trusting her with where to aim it. What are you asking me? She whispered. His hand lifted toward her face. Stopped. Always that restraint. Always the almost. I am asking for permission to come back. Her chest tightened. To what? To you. The answer was too simple. Too devastating. Lena looked past him at Mila, sleeping in Raphael's arms. What happens now? I take my daughter somewhere, no one can touch her. I dismantle the Bellamy alliance. I bury the Varkov threat so deep, their grandchildren feel it. That sounds romantic. It is the honest version. Despite everything, Lena smiled. Matteo's eyes dropped to her mouth. The air changed. He looked away first, as if the sight cost him control. I will also make sure your brother is protected, he said. With your permission. With my permission, she repeated. Yes. She studied him. The most feared man on the ship had learned to say yes, like surrender. Lena stepped closer and adjusted the red ribbon around his wrist. His breath changed. Eli likes aquarium videos, she said softly, and waffles, and routines. If your men scare him, I'll never forgive you. They want, and I'm going back to work. Matteo's face hardened. No. Her eyebrow lifted. He closed his eyes briefly, then corrected himself. I hate that idea. Better. I can offer you anything. I know. And you choose cleaning cabins. For now. Lena said, I choose finishing what I started. I choose not letting this ship be the place that turned me into someone's rescued object. His gaze burned. You are very difficult to protect. I'm not asking to be easy. No, he said quietly. You never were. The announcement came overhead then, instructing passengers to prepare for controlled disembarkation at the emergency port. The spell broke, but not completely. Matteo reached into his pocket and removed the torn passport, the fake one that had started everything. He handed it to Lena. She frowned. Why are you giving me this? Because everyone else saw death paperwork. His eyes held hers. You saw a man someone was trying to erase. Lena took it carefully. And what do you see when you look at me? She asked, before fear could stop her. Matteo's expression shifted. There was no charm in it. No easy seduction. Only truth with sharp edges. I see the woman who stood on a ship full of killers and told me to think when all I wanted was blood. I see the woman my daughter reached for in a storm. I see the only person who made me afraid of surviving alone. Lena's eyes stung. That sounds dangerous. It is. I'm not sure I should want that. His voice lowered. I'm sure you shouldn't. A beat passed. Then Lena stepped close enough that the front of his torn shirt brushed Matteo's coat around her shoulders. I'm still wearing your coat. And, she said. His eyes darkened. I noticed. You want it back? No. Why? His hand lifted again. This time, he touched her, only 2 fingers beneath her chin, gentle enough to ask. Intense enough to ruin the morning, Because it looks like you survived me, he said. Lena's breath trembled. You are very dramatic for a man who claims not to process emotions. His mouth finally curved. Not much. Just enough to feel forbidden. Then Mila stirred in Raphael's arms and whispered, Papa. Matteo stepped back instantly, not abandoning the moment, choosing his daughter first. Lena loved that more than she wanted to admit. Mila reached for him, and he took her carefully, pressing a kiss to her hair with the quiet reverence of a man touching a miracle. The ship docked beneath a gray morning sky. Passengers disembarked into flashing cameras, police lights, and scandal. News helicopters hovered over the harbor. The Bellamy name was already collapsing across every screen in America. Vivienne's perfect engagement had become a crime scene. Matteo's empire had not weakened. It had sharpened. But Lena did not leave with him. Not that morning. She stood near the crew exit in a fresh uniform, wrist bandaged, hair tied back, watching Matteo carry Mila toward a black SUV waiting beyond the port gates. Raphael held an umbrella over them. Men in dark suits formed a protective wall. At the door of the SUV, Matteo turned. Across the distance, his eyes found Lena. The world moved around them. Crew members carrying bags, officers shouting instructions, cameras flashing, rain beginning again. He did not wave. He did not smile. He simply looked at her like leaving was a wound he intended to return from. Lena held his coat, folded over her arm. She had tried to give it back 3 times. He had refused 3 times. Mila lifted her small hand and waved. Lena waved back. Then Matteo got into the sub, and the convoy drove away into the rain. For 2 weeks, Lena's life tried to become normal. It failed. She returned to Tacoma after the cruise line gave the crew recovery leave, which was a polite corporate phrase for, please don't sue us. Nora stayed with her for 3 nights, talking too much, sleeping too little, and checking the locks every hour. Eli's care home suddenly had new security cameras, new staff, and a quiet donation large enough to renovate the entire sensory room. Lena called Matteo furious. He answered on the first ring. I asked permission. He said, for security, not a building renovation. The old sensory room had fluorescent lights. Eli dislikes fluorescent lights. Lena went silent. How do you know that? A pause, I asked. The answer undid her more than money would have. Later that Sunday, when Lena visited Eli, he was sitting in a room with soft lamps, ocean projections on the wall, and a new tablet loaded with aquarium documentaries. A man in a plain jacket stood outside the facility, pretending not to be security. Eli looked up at Lena and smiled. Your friend Matteo likes sharks, he said. Lena froze. You talked to Matteo. He asked if sharks are misunderstood. Her throat tightened. What did you say? Eli looked back at the screen. I said sharks are not bad. They are just built for deep water. That night, Lena found a black car parked outside her apartment. Matteo leaned against it in the rain. No bodyguards close enough to crowd her. No grand gesture. No flowers. Just him. Dark coat. Wet hair. Tired eyes. Waiting. Lena stood under the awning with her grocery bag in one hand. You look like a threat, she said. I am one. At least you self-aware. I'm trying that too. She should not have smiled. She did. He walked toward her slowly, stopping at the edge of the awning, leaving space between them. How is Eli? You already know. I wanted to hear it from you. He likes the room. Matteo nodded. And Mila. His face softened in a way he would probably deny under oath. She sleeps with the lights on. She asks about you. Lena's heart twisted. She does. She calls you the storm lady. Why? She says you are not scared of the rain. Lena laughs softly. I was scared of everything. I know, Matteo said. That is why it mattered. Rain fell between them. Two people from different worlds, separated by every reasonable argument. He looked at the grocery bag. May I carry that? I can carry my own groceries. I know. She studied him, then handed him the bag. His fingers brushed hers. The same spark moved between them. Quieter now, but deeper. Do you want to come up? She asked. His eyes lifted to hers. The question changed the night, not because of desire, though that was there, because entering her apartment meant entering a life he could not command. Small kitchen, worn sofa, bills on the counter, Eli's drawings on the fridge. A world without marble floors or armed men at every doorway. Matteo understood. If I come up, he said carefully, I will want to come back. Lena's pulse slowed. Then don't come up unless you mean to. The rain whispered around them. He stepped closer. I came back. Lena. There was no armor in his voice now. Only danger stripped down to truth. I told you I would. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she unlocked the building door. Matteo Russo, feared by enemies, obeyed the quiet invitation of a woman the world had once overlooked. He followed her upstairs, not as a king entering a conquered room, as a man learning how to knock. Months later, the story of the cruise ship became legend in places Lena never wanted to visit. People whispered about the Bellamy betrayal, the Varkov collapse, the hidden Russo daughter rescued at sea. They argued over news footage and conspiracy documentaries. They replayed the blurry image of a curvy cleaner standing beside a mafia boss under stormlights, his coat around her shoulders, a child in his arms. But they never knew the real ending. The real ending happened on a quiet morning in Alaska. Far from cameras, Matteo took Lena and Mila to a private stretch of coastline where glaciers shone blue-white beneath the rising sun. Eli came too, wearing noise-canceling headphones and narrating facts about whales, while Raphael pretended not to be emotionally invested. Mila ran ahead, collecting smooth stones. She had begun laughing again. Not always, not easily, but enough. Lena watched her from the shore, wrapped in the same black coat Matteo had never taken back. Matteo stood beside her, still dangerous, still feared, still a man with enemies buried in places she did not ask about. But different now, not softer, to the world, only more honest with her. You re-staring, Lena said. Yes. No denial. I've grown. She smiled. He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to refuse. She didn't. His fingers closed around hers, warm against the cold. I bought something, he said. Lena sighed. That sentence terrifies me. It is not a building. Progress. Or a ship. Matteo. He turned toward her. And for the first time, she saw uncertainty in him, without crisis forcing it there. From his pocket, he removed a small velvet box. Lena's breath stopped. He did not kneel. Not yet. Instead, he held the box unopened between them. I am not asking you to enter my world blind, he said. I am not asking you to become less free so I can feel less afraid. I am not asking you to be grateful, or obedient, or easy to protect. Her eyes filled. What are you asking? His thumb moved over her hand. I am asking if I may spend the rest of my life becoming a man you do not have to survive. The wind moved around them. Mila laughed in the distance. Eli announced that orcas were technically dolphins, Lena looked at the man who had once ordered the world like it belonged to him, now standing before her with a ring and restraint and a heart he barely knew how to hold. She touched the red ribbon, still tied around his wrist. You understand I will still argue with you. I'm counting on it. And I will still work if I want to. I will complain privately. And no moving people. Buying buildings. Threatening institutions. Or restructuring my life without asking. A pause. I can agree to 3 of those immediately. Matteo. I am joking. You don't joke. I'm learning. She laughed through her tears. Then he opened the box. The ring was not enormous. Not the kind Vivienne would have chosen. It was vintage. Delicata. With a dark blue stone surrounded by small diamonds. Like a piece of night sky caught in silver. It was my mother, S. Matteo said. She was the last person before you who told me no and lived without regretting it. Lena's heart broke open. Matteo lowered himself to one knee then. Not like a king making a display, but like a dangerous man choosing humility because love had finally taught him where power ended. Mila gasped from behind them. Papa. Eli looked over and said, statistically, this is a significant social event. Raphael removed his sunglasses and wiped his eyes like the wind had attacked him. Matteo never looked away from Lena. Lena Carter, he said, voice low and unsteady. You found my name when someone tried to erase me. You found my daughter when I was afraid to hope. You found the parts of me I buried because I thought love made men weak. He swallowed. It did not make me weak. It made me afraid. Then it made me better. Lena covered her mouth. So I am asking, he said, not as a Russo, not as a boss, not as a man who can command a room, but as the man who came back to your door in the rain. Will you marry me? Lena looked at the ocean, at the child smiling behind him, at her brother watching whales on the horizon, at the man kneeling in front of her, still dangerous, still imperfect, but no longer hiding behind coldness. She remembered the trash bin, the torn passport, Vivienne, S, bruising grip, the gunshots in the storm, Matteo's hand catching her over the railing. Never tell me to choose losing you. Lena stepped closer and placed her hand over his. Yes, she whispered, but I'm keeping the coat. For 1 second, Matteo started. Then he laughed. A real laugh. Low. Disbelieving. Beautiful. He slid the ring onto her finger and rose, pulling her into his arms as Mila cheered, and Eli calmly announced that emotional bonding improved survival rates in mammals. Matteo held Lena against him, his face buried in her hair. His voice meant only for her. I love you, he said. The words did not come easily. That made them matter more. Lena closed her eyes. I love you too. His arms tightened, but not like a cage, like shelter. Above them, the Alaskan sky opened into gold. The ocean glittered. The wind carried salt and cold and the promise of a life neither of them had expected. And somewhere far behind them, on a luxury cruise ship that had once tried to turn them into tragedy, a torn passport remained locked in evidence. Proof that a man could be erased on paper. Proof that a woman could be overlooked by everyone. And proof that sometimes the person cleaning up the mess is the only one brave enough to save the king. Expose the bride. Rescue the child. And walk away wearing the Mafia Boss S coat like she had been born to survive the storm. Matteo kissed her forehead as Mila wrapped her arms around both of them. Lena looked out at the endless water and smiled. She had boarded that ship as a cleaner no one saw. She left it as the woman, a dangerous man, crossed the world to come back for, and Matteo Russo, who had once believed love was only leverage. finally understood the truth. Love was not the thing that made him weak. Love was the one thing powerful enough to make him kneel.